All right, guys, we're back. All right, we're going to talk about the punch, but we're not even going to show the punch. All right, for this first segment, I'm going to show where power is generated from. Power in your punching is generated from the ground up. So when people just throw arm punches, well, that's all you get. The weight of your dangly little arms, right? We want to enhance the power. So power is generated from the ground up. It comes from the hips, but the torque begins from the ground. So the first lesson in striking is understanding hip torque, hip power, and turning of the feet. Let's talk about stance. All right, so your first stance lesson, guys. If you're right-handed, if you're right dominant, your primary or dominant hand, that foot is going to step back, all right? Your feet are shoulder width apart. And now you have good balance side to side, and you also have good balance front to back, should somebody push me either way. Your legs aren't locked out. You have a nice little flex stance for stability, okay? That's how that works, all right? All right, so we'll do it from another angle. So if you're a left-handed person, you're just gonna have to do the opposite. So if you notice, I'm standing on the line. I'm gonna take my dominant side, the side that I use the most, and I'm just gonna drive my leg back, all right? It's going to be a slight torque with my feet, so I'm blading my opponent, so I'm less of a target. From another angle, feet shoulder width apart, drive your dominant leg back, and then slightly angle yourself, okay? Now, we're pulling from boxing, but for self-defense purposes, there will be some squaring up, because generally, I don't walk around and talk around the water cooler like this, okay? I'm more, my right leg is always back, but I'm more moving my hands, slightly bladed. Hey, how you doing? I can show love, give hugs, whatever, just as good as I can push or punch. Stance is so important, and I want to be balanced at all times. So dominant side is back, okay? So how do we develop torque for the punch? Again, power is generated for the hips. So let's do a little stretching drill just to warm up, okay? Again, always seek advice of a doctor before starting any exercise or self-defense training program, okay? Again, you are responsible for your self-defense. I teach to self-protect. I do not teach to bully. Let's make that very, very, very clear. All right, so here we go. Now, watch this. I'm gonna pick up my dominant heel, and I'm just gonna spin and torque, and torque. And torque, and you can do it with both sides. Torque, 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 and torque. All right, from a side angle, we're going to torque, 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 and torque. Good. Now, let's get our arms involved. We're going to keep them nice and loose. All right, nice and loose. We're going to do the same torque. Watch what happens to your arms if they're nice and relaxed. If they're tense, it looks like this. You look like Frankenstein, right? If they're relaxed, it looks like a little carousel. Guess what, guys? This is your hips doing the work. The torque of the foot, knees, hips is sending the hands on out. Remember that as we start talking about delivering a punch, okay? Remember the concepts. Power is generated. Now, let's add a little more power to it. So I'm in my stance, and think of guys like Michael Jackson or Elvis that did a really good job of torquing their hips. You know, hey, Elvis, I'm dating myself, right? I don't think I was alive during this time. All right, so now we're gonna do the same thing with a little bit more torque. So if I'm torquing my right side, go ahead and just torque, turn the foot, turn the knee, torque. And if you notice, your arms are flinging just a little more violent. I want to prove to you that the power is generated from the hips. the arms and the fist and the expression of the hands are the icing on the cake. And we'll get to that in a second, all right? But you need to understand this concept. Now, as I'm torquing my right side, I'm visualizing throwing a straight right hand. I'm visualizing, but we're not throwing it yet, so work with me. This is just basics. You need the basics, all right? Same thing. If I'm going to fire a jab, I'm torquing the hips and stepping. Same thing when I'm firing the jab. There's a hip thing that goes. So let's torque the hips a few more times. Torque, 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 torque. Hands nice and relaxed. Torque and torque. Very good, guys. Okay, so now we're going to add the shoulders, okay? So we're going to complement the torque of turn of the feet, torque of the hips. Now we're going to complement with throwing the shoulder from the side. I'm using my dominant side. Use your dominant side. I turn the feet, turn the knee, turn the hips. Boom. And I use the momentum to throw the shoulder. Power is generated in the hips, okay? So it looks like this. Hands down for now, right? Torque and turn, and then throw the shoulder. Beautiful job. Again, if you're doing it right, you see how my hand is already making its way out? I'm letting my body do the work for my hands. The hands are the icing of the cake, okay? So, right side, right? It's already flipping out. Good. Throw that shoulder. As you throw the shoulder, you see your hand coming out. Very good. You can do the same thing from the other side. Throw that shoulder. You can even take a step. Throw the shoulder. Throw that shoulder. You can see that hand ready to whip on out there. So as you can see, it was never meant for us to just be flat-footed and just throw our hands. If you want to effectively distract your opponent, your power has to come from the hips. Okay, so that's your hip lesson, guys. How do you drill? Just what we did. Lesson 1, just practice. Practice the torque of the hip. Practice your solid stance. Feet shoulder width apart. Dominant leg slightly back. Hands relaxed. So when you turn your hips, you feel the hand either going across or going forward, depending on what you want to do. Once you get comfortable with that, you are now ready to talk about these hands. And it's a beautiful thing when you burn less calories, you depend on your body to throw the punch, not your hands to throw the punch. Lesson 1, guys, the hips. Fine points again, guys. Sit down, knees flexed. Never ever stand tall. Even though I'm bladed, my leg is back, I don't have as much balance. Sit flexed, flex. My knees are flexed, right? Always ready, right? Heels slightly up, and guess what? Talk with your hands so your hands are always up for defensive reasons, okay? So there's your lesson. Power generated from the hips. Next block, we are going to introduce the punch and the palm heel strike. All right, the goal is to distract, disengage, and get out. Buy ourselves time. You don't have to be afraid to feel like one. Let's train. Boom. Power generated in the hips, guys.